person said when he said that in as much as we have liberated, in as much as we are free from the physical rule of the Western world, we still have their influence. It's like we're still under their oppression in our minds and in the way we just relate and come out. So probably my sharing today will try and just enlighten some of the things and see how Maya Angelou, in most of her poems, for example, I Still Rise, Africa, the Caged Bird, she tries to remind Afro-Americans the importance of retrieving our cultural values and try to embrace them so that we are fully liberated. Okay. All right, that has already been introduced. So I'll try and take you through the roadmap of the things that I will be looking at so that we are not lost in the way. So I'll look at the definition, I'll look at the historical background of women, our cultural values, I'll look at the poem by Maya Angelou, Africa itself, and how we lost our identity as a result of colonization, and how we have been reclaiming our identity. First, our fathers started with the independence. Now it's up to us to begin to reclaim our identity, our cultural values, and begin to embrace them so that we can actually be fully liberated, okay? It's always important that you know why you are doing this. Why are you learning this? The first thing is to shed light on what Africa, particularly women, have lost through the years of suffering. When I talk about through the years of suffering, I'm referring to through the years of oppression, when women have been left in the background, when women have not had a voice to express themselves. All right. And the second objective, understand how culture help us reclaim what we lost during colonization. This is very dear to me because if you look at our culture, our African culture, it's very difficult to actually pinpoint and say this is our culture. You look at our way of dressing, you look at the way we eat, you look at the way we actually come out. We are more westernized than the actual Western people themselves. So we are trying to say that, look, why don't we reclaim our culture? Why don't we have our culture? In that way, we will fully actualize ourselves and be fully liberated in what we do in education and in everything and all that. And we'll also look at some parts in Maya Angelou's poem, Africa, and see how Maya, in her poem, Africa, she tries to help us to reconnect to our roots of who we are so that we can fully be independent and achieve our full potential. Okay, is that clear? All right, so let's start by defining who an African woman, or everyone says, oh, I'm an African and I'm an African. Someone comes to Zambia or in Africa, they live for like 10 years and they say an African. All right, an African woman by definition is a woman with an African heritage. So the word heritage there plays an important role. Heritage means something that is passed on from you to you, from generation to generation. We're looking at the customs, the practices that were passed on by our forefathers, by our grandfathers. And these are passed on through the way we dress, the way we dance, the songs that are sung. I remember when I was growing up, my grandfather would often tell us stories about the hair. In Africa, we call it kalulu, and the hippo, or how the hippo lost its skin, or how the hair ended up having long ears, or how the monkey ended up being the way it is. Those were not just stories. Those were lessons passed on by their forefathers and then passed on to us so that we can learn something out of it. And the other definition is any woman born and bred in Africa is considered to be an African. So regardless of your skin color, regardless of your race, regardless of where your parents are coming from, as long as you were born in Africa, then you are considered to be African. And that is very, very important in that way. Wikipedia will often define it, women in Africa are women who were born in, who live in, and are from the continent of Africa. So there you see it encompasses everything. It's not just the person who was born in Africa, but also the person who lives in Africa and has actually understood the cultural benefits of being an African child. All right. Now, if we look at the historical background itself, I'll be focusing very much on women because, like the chairman said, if you look at the poem Maya Angelou that we're looking at, that's just a metaphor. The whole poem is metaphorical to show you that Africa in itself is compared to a woman, because a woman is one person, one individual who has been marginalized for centuries and centuries. She's one person who has been left in the background. She's one person who has been undervalued. At times, we are viewed as less important to even voice out our opinions in society. For example, if you go to our homes, in my own culture, I come from the southern part of Zambia. Whenever there's a big meeting, I would never hear my mom say anything. But then the most interesting thing is that whatever my father would be saying, it's because my mother had already told him in the background that this is what you should say. So already there you can see how women are marginalized. I'm sure it's not just only in Africa, but even in other parts of the world. So those are the things that we'll be looking at. So in addition to that, if you look at the historical background, you find that a woman has been given a place in every society, in every community you go to, regardless of whether you go to America, you go to England, you go to Asia, where you are, you come to Africa, every woman has been given a place. If you go to America, you'll be surprised that actually they do not believe so much in a woman. A very good example is if you look at Hillary Clinton. She could have won and become the first female president, and yet most people started questioning her. If she becomes president, then who's going to look after the family? Who's going to take care of the children? Who's going to take care of the husband? So that is the place I'm talking about, where a woman has been given a place in society, where she's only seen, where she's not heard. You just see that's your mother preparing the meal. She's not allowed to speak. She's not allowed to voice out her opinion, but she's expected to produce. She's expected to produce meals at the end of the day. No one is going to ask her, how did you prepare this meal? Or what are we going to eat? End of the day, when our fathers, I remember when my father would come back from work, the first thing he just expects his meal to be served on the table, without really necessarily wanting to see, oh, how was mom preparing the food and all that. And that's what I mean by a woman being given a place. Not just in my culture, you find that all over the world, if you think about your parents, especially your mothers, you realize that they are the ones who are doing all the chores. While our fathers, sorry to sound very sexist here, you find that men go out there apparently to go and look for food or to fend for their family. But the one who does all the chores, who attends to the kids, who's going to even attend to her husband, is the woman. She's expected to produce and not really to be heard. And I think when you look at all this, that's exactly what is happening. There have been so many movements in this world that have actually been put forward. You find that social reforms, you've got deliberate policies worldwide, government reforms, trying to actually bring out women so that women can be represented in politics. They can be represented as teachers. They can be represented at international level. They can be represented in so many fraternities in this world. Regardless of all that, if we go back centuries, you find that we had women every now and then we had movements, the Black movement, to try and just bring out women and the Africans. But still, despite all that, we are still lagging behind. I like asking questions and trying to be very controversial. Sometimes some of the questions I would ask are, why are we still lagging behind? That's the question we should be asking ourselves as women. And young girls, I've seen some young ladies out there. Why are you still lagging behind? Why are we just allowing the men to be out there, and yet we are stronger than them emotionally, mentally? Why are we still afraid to show our true potential? Or do we just lack the confidence to push ourselves? Or is it just because of the Western influence that we have lost our cultural value and appreciation of who we really are? Those are some of the rhetorical questions you could probably just to get you thinking, like, why are we still lagging behind? Why are we still far back? Why are we still afraid to show our true potential? Or do we just lack the confidence to push ourselves and say, you know what, I can do it? Very interesting. When I'm teaching in class, you find that the boys will be the ones who will be saying, oh, miss, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to own my own business. Girls, on the other hand, will often settle for something less. Very few girls would say, I want to own a business, I want to become a CEO. Because why? Boys, by the time they are brought up, that confidence, that self-esteem is built in them, and they understand their cultural position. Whereas women, our cultural position, it's there where you just have a place, and it's the place society has put on you, which to me, I think is quite unfair. All right. Like I have put some of the points, maybe we lag behind because of societal expectations. As a woman, when you reach the age of 20, 25, somewhere there, if you're not married, everyone starts to asking you questions. Why are you not married? Okay, when are you getting married? So society somehow, in as much as we are going to school, has already positioned us of where we are supposed to be or where we are going to end up. Have you seen that? Whereas a boy is expected right away to go to university and probably open up a very big company and go and look for a wife, and this wife will come in the house and start cooking for him. Those are some of the societal expectations that I'm talking about. The expectations of a woman in society are that you will go to school, somehow you're expected to get married, somehow you're expected to have children, and somehow you're expected to look after your family and just tend to eat almost throughout your life. If you decide to become a career woman, it means you have to juggle. It's not easy. Be a wife, be a mother, and at the same time, follow your dream or become this career woman. Maybe it's some of the government policies that are not effective at all. Some of the government policies, yes, they're very good on document, but have they been implemented adequately where a woman or a young person a young girl is actually able to realize her dreams? No. We still have people that are getting married at a tender age, and you wonder, what is the government doing about it? All right? Or is it probably because of just our mindset as women? I mean, when society expects you to go to a certain level, when the government has put these policies that are not even working, as a human being, very funny psychology comes in. As a human being, you just reach a point of where, why should I try? I'm just going to remain here. I'm just going to remain here. Besides, I'm going to get married. When I get married, my husband will provide everything for me. And when we do that, we play the role of receivership. We just want to receive. We just want to receive what has been given to us. Or probably we have accepted, adopted, and mimicked the Western civilization or way of life to define ourselves, where we've probably lost our identity because we are trying so hard to continue walking in the footsteps of what our colonizers left at the expense of who we are, of who we truly are as Indians and as Africans. And when you look at it this way, you find that women have been affected the most. The good part is that as women, we are programmed and made to prevail in the most difficult situations. If you look at your parents, they're the ones who actually gave birth to you. Your mothers are the ones who gave birth to you. They're the ones who look after you. They're the ones who help you with the homework. Look at how much they can multitask. Look at how they can run a home. Look at how they go for work and they come back and still prepare a meal for you. Look at how they encourage you. Leave a home for 2 days for your dad. You'll be surprised how it will fall into different places. You probably won't even find a plate where it's supposed to be. But as women, we should begin to realize that we have the potential, and that potential is what we need to start cultivating in. And that potential is the potential each and every young person right now where you are, as a young lady, where you're sitting there, you should know that you have the propensity, you have the capacity to actually overcome every challenges that society has put in place. All right, if you look at the poem done by Maya Angelou, Africa, we are a true reflection of what we can achieve, even after being trodden upon for centuries. You look at Africa in itself, in its darkest moment, where colonizers came and literally stole all the natural resources. And yet somehow we managed to get our independence, but we are not fully independent. All right. And that's the reason we are having such talks, so that the future generation can realize that, you know what, to be free, to be fully liberated, you need to go through certain stages. In the poem Africa Yourself, we are reminded that as women or young ladies, we are naturers. There's naturer and the person who natures. Nature is what you produce. Naturer is where you begin to look after something. Because if you go back to psychology, you find that nature versus nature are the same. They all play 50%, 50%. Nature meaning we are born with certain skills, and those skills are born with us and we begin to grow with them. But those skills, for them to really come out, the nature part, where a person begins to nurture those things, nourish them so that they truly come out, plays an important role in our society. And we, the women and the young children and the young girls, we are the ones who are actually capable of doing that. We're able to produce, we're able to raise, and we're able to mold nations. When I say nations, every nation starts with a family. If a family is broken down, then the nation won't be at peace. So it starts with our families. And who are the caretakers of the family? It's the women. So already from there, we can see how much potential we have as women, as young people. And this is echoed if you look at the poem Africa. And it's also echoed in one of the poems by Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. Are we clear? All right. Forget about my educate a woman, you educate a nation, educate a man, you educate an individual. I don't know if that's true, but that's what people say. All right, I'll try and take you through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not so sure if you've actually ever come across this. As women, we always start from the bottom. When we are looking after our families, this is how a person can fully actualize themselves. You find that the first thing as women, we always try to worry about food. Already it shows how much potential we have, because we know that we need to start from the bottom. We know that we need to start with the physiological needs. We need to start with food, warmth, water, and rest. We know that right now, if I'm going to go for work, I should eat. If my children are going to go for work, they should eat. From there, we go to safety needs, which is security and all that. This is where we try to make sure that there is a home, there's a shelter just to protect us from things such as harsh weather conditions. And then there's a sense of belongingness and love, where we need our family members, our close friends, so that we can fully actualize ourselves. And then we reach to esteem needs. Now, esteem needs, if you look at each one of us, this is where it becomes very, very crucial. Crucial in the sense that you find that you can have all the three needs, but very often people, by the time they get here, because of what society has done, because of what family has done here, and what society has done here, when it comes to reaching this point, that sense of prestige to say, you know what, I can do this. In most of the girls and the women, we lack that. There are a few times you could probably most of the girls, I know I do it, where you feel so afraid. I remember when I was told to actually prepare for this, the first thing I asked Shabina is, how many people will I be talking to? Because I couldn't just see myself ever. All right, thank you. I also want to in Africa, you find that we still I'm wearing artificial hair anyway, don't mind me. Artificial hair. And already, that's already being under oppression. I'm trying to get rid of this. Eventually, one day you meet me and I won't have this. I'll just have my natural kinky hair. You find that people wear tight, revealing clothes, all in the name of, oh, this is a new fashion. But that in itself is still oppression. The same thing that Maya Angelou echoes in the second stanza. But then the beauty is that in the last stanza, she starts with, now she is rising. Africa in itself probably started rising at the time of independence. We got our independence in 1964. And you can probably say that was the rising of Zambia. But That's very good. I like the fact that yes, we rose. Yes, we're independent. Yes, we can have elections. Yes, our government can make its own decisions. But are they really making their own decisions? Are they really making their own decisions if running the government means going to IMF or World Bank to borrow money and then say, okay, fine, we're giving you this money, but when you get this money, this is what you should do? Is that really independence? And this comes back to us when you look at us as women. We are rising. Yes, policies are there, but we must continue rising. And I like the fact that she uses the present tense. Now she is rising, meaning you haven't risen yet, meaning you're still in the process. You're still getting there. Meaning your mindset is not going to change today. It's not going to change tomorrow. It will continue changing slowly, but you must be determined to change. Hence, now she is rising. Rising, you continue rising. Rising in the way we think. Rising in realizing that in order for us to be fully empowered, in order for us to take those key positions in government, in society, we must continue improving ourselves. We must embrace our culture and our values so that we continue rising, so that we become physically, emotionally, and mentally independent. When you know who you are, when you know your culture, you know your value, no one can shake you. No one can change your mindset. I always say that to my students. Know who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going. Once you know all that, you will continue rising and no one can stop you. And in the last stanza, Maya actually reminds us that, yes, she tells us, you can remember the pains, you can remember the suffering, you can remember all that, but you must not continue dwelling on that. Don't continue dwelling on the injustices that have happened to you, but rather use those injustices that were done to move forward, not just today, but to continue moving forward. Just like our forefathers, yes, we got liberated. If you look at the last stanza, she uses a lot of present tense. Striding. When you're striding, it's where you just don't go by full force, you grab something, but you continue slowly and you continue conquering one thing at a time. I live by the notion that achieve daily goals. Set yourself daily goals as a woman. I have daily goals. And when I achieve my daily goal, I'm so proud, I go home. So I have my daily goals, I have my weekly goals, and I have my monthly goals. And then before I know it, I have achieved my yearly goals. And before I know it, I have achieved quite a lot. And that is very, very important. This is exactly what she's actually telling us in the last stanza. So when we embrace ourselves and we feel fully liberated, you find that everything around you becomes different. You possess a certain demeanor about yourself. If you look at Maya Angelou herself, I was a close follower of her. I mean, she was the first Black woman to drive a bus. I'm sure at the time she was driving a public bus, there must have been women who were saying, what is she doing? She's just a woman. Why is she doing the woman's job? Why is she doing all that? And yet, she didn't care. We mustn't forget that she was a mother as well. But she decided, you know what? I'm going to learn to multitask where I can and just make the best of me. And you can see even throughout her career, she was deep-rooted. You couldn't really shake her because she knew who she was. She had embraced her culture and she was willing to go back to it and say, you know what? This is my culture and I'm going to move with it and no one is going to take it away from me. And that's what she was all about. And it is echoed in her poems. Yes, she cries about Africa, but she's also crying for the woman who must continue rising, for the woman who must continue embracing her true identity, for the woman who must realize that she is of great value, for the woman and the young child who should know that where she is, there's more to her. she's not just, you may be tiny. I'm quite a tiny person by nature, very small. But very often I'll tell you that when I stand to speak, you'll be surprised that, was this the same tiny person we actually saw who was able to do that? Nowadays, as a way of, there's this big rebellion going around, not only in my country, but around the continent, especially among Africans, where we've realized that, you know what, we are going to go natural. We're going to go with kinky hair. If I removed my wig, I have got kinky hair. We are celebrating our own materials, like chitenge materials, and who we are. We're wearing our beads proudly. We're enjoying the food that we have. And in that way, we are striding, we are moving, we are beginning to say, you know what? We are not just going to be receivers. We are going to use our natural resources. We are going to use our chitenge materials to start our own businesses. You've got a few women, the paper that I'm actually working on for my dissertation, you'll be amazed to find that a lot of women have woken up and they're running their own businesses. Yes, they may not be very big businesses compared to the men, but what I like about it is that they have started and they're striding and they are rising. And in a few years' time, before you know it, we will have more women out there. We are having the first vice female president in the US. Look at her. If you look at her background, where she's coming from, I mean, she's been through places where she's been called names, but there she is. She's standing, she's fought. She didn't just sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to remain there, I'm going to be passive, I'm going to just be on the receiving end. No, she fought her way to make it. And that's what the poem Africa is all about.